Well, I think I had a typical experience. I was in the Army before the war started, and I went through the whole thing. And I saw a lot of the world. The Army moved us around a great deal. And consequently, I'm not much of a traveler today. I did my traveling at the Army's expense. I don't want to go. I made 2 resolutions when I got back from the war. The first one was that I wasn't going to ever let worry kill me. The second one was that if I wasn't home when the sun went down, I was going to be headed for home. And I've stuck with that pretty well. When we went in, of course, these towns were all shot to pieces. Usually, when I got there, I was late getting there. I was a replacement, but we usually followed tanks into the towns. The tanks would go in and blast their way in, and we would come around and clean up behind them. It was a bad experience, but in a way it was a good experience because I think I learned a lot about the values of life, having realized that there were more important things than money in this life. Yeah. These girls worked in a Dunlap tire factory at Offenbach, which is just across the main river from Frankfurt. And of course it wasn't running then, but Frankfurt was down, Offenbach was down, and Darmstadt, the next town down, was demolished. But these girls climbed on the kitchen truck. We were a rifle company, and the only transportation we had was the company commander's Jeep and a kitchen truck. And they climbed on the kitchen truck and went down, and that ended all of the KP duty for the fellows. Those girls cleaned the potatoes and fixed the meals and so forth. They went on down, and on down in Germany, when the war ended, there was an agreement between President Roosevelt and Mr. Stalin that these people would be repatriated. They would be sent back to Russia. So they sent Russian troops down into the American zone, and we had to round up all of these Russian citizens, and we'd put them into a big barbed wire enclosure and put them on a train and take them up to where the Russians were and turn them over to the Russians. And they had everything that they owned on their backs wrapped in a blanket. When we got there, we had to almost fight the Russians to keep the train. They wanted to take the train too. And these people marched by, they made them throw their belongings onto a pile, and they loaded them on another train and took them back into Russia. And we know now what happened to them. There were about 1 million of them. These were people who had worked in the factories in Germany during the war, and Joseph Stalin didn't want them back, you know. They had seen the civilization, as we call it, but they put them to work in the mines, and I had them executed, about 1 million of them. And really, one of the saddest things of the whole war, because these people, they didn't want to go back. These girls didn't want to go back. They were educated, and they had seen the worst, you know, in Germany. They didn't want to go back. we had to take them in. Well, I felt sorry for the civilians, the people who lived in those big cities which had been burned out and destroyed, largely had moved to the country, because out in the country the war had not ravaged the country, and they could get food, and they could get twigs in the forest to keep warm because it was cold. And there were very few people left in those towns. I mean, sorry for them. We used to share our rations with some of them. They were hungry. And by and large, they were good people. They were misled, and I guess some of them were bad, but a lot of them were bad. But by and large, the German people are industrious, smart, clean.
You would have me say.
My graduating class from the Citadel had 144 members, and almost 40 of them were killed during the war. And yeah, I can remember what each one looked like, how he talked. Yeah, we were close, and I think about him a lot. Yeah. The company of replacements that I took to Europe were largely 19-year-olds late in the war, and they had been allowed to go to college. Their drafting was deferred as long as they were going to college. ASTP, they called it. And the latter part of the war, when they were running short of replacements, they made them drop out of college and go into the Army. And I took a company of them, largely 19-year-olds, to Europe. And I don't know what became of them. I know that a lot of them were killed, I'm sure, because they went in as replacements, infantry replacements. It was not easy. I questioned whether I should have stayed in the Army or not, because really that was all I knew when I got out. And I could have stayed in and retired by the time I was 50, but I decided to come back to Winsboro, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. I had saved about $10,000 while I was overseas, and I borrowed $10,000, and I went into the lumber business, and it worked out good. And I feel like it was good for the community as well as good for my existence. Yeah. The period after the war was a period of development. We had lots of factories moving in and so forth, and I was able to be a contributor to all of that construction and so forth. So I don't regret not staying in the Army, no.